You ever hear someone say something so casually cruel, it echoes louder than a scream? That was my Tuesday. I was folding laundry. Yeah, I'm that guy, the one who folds his socks in pairs and thinks marriage is mostly about the little things. I cook dinner, refill her water bottle, even leave those dumb little notes in the lunch she never actually takes. You know, the kind of stuff that doesn't trend on social media but holds a marriage together like duct tape and good intentions. She was slicing chicken. Not delicately either. No, she was attacking it like it owed her rent. The knife screeched against the plate. Then she said it. Flat voice. Eyes on the meat like it might vanish if she stared hard enough. He told me I laugh more when I'm not with you. Silence. That kind that makes your bones ring. I didn't speak. Didn't breathe. I just sat there, tasting mashed potatoes that suddenly had the texture of cardboard. Then she added, "Don't take it personally. You'll get over it." You know what's funny? I didn't get angry. I got cold. Quiet. Like someone had unplugged my soul and replaced it with static. I pushed back from the table. No yelling. No throwing wine glasses. Just stood, walked outside in my socks. Yep, those neatly folded ones, and disappeared into the night like a ghost who still pays the mortgage. But that wasn't the end. That was the beginning. You want to hear the rest? Let me know, and I'll take you through the next part. Because what I found out after I walked away from that dinner table made her words look like a Hallmark card. And I wasn't the man she thought I was. Not anymore. I walked. Just kept going like a wind-up toy that forgot how to stop. Past the neighbors' houses. Past that one weird tree shaped like a question mark. Past the spot where I once kissed her under fireworks and thought, this is it. Turns out, it wasn't even close. Somewhere between the 7th and 8th block, the cold hit. Not just my feet, but all the way through. My chest felt like it was filled with damp cement. Solid, heavy, unshakable. And the worst part? My brain wouldn't shut up. He. She said he. Not someone. Not a guy from work. No, she gave him a pronoun. A whole existence. Which meant this wasn't new. I ended up behind the grocery store. Sat on an old milk crate by the dumpsters. Smelled like fermented produce and expired coupons back there. But it was still more honest than our kitchen had been for months. When I finally looped back home, I didn't go inside. Just looked through the window like some stranger casing a place he used to own. She was humming, wiping down the counter like a scene from a detergent commercial. And there it was, confetti in her hair. Little flecks of gold and white. At first, I thought maybe she'd been to a coworker's birthday party. But then I saw it. A white envelope on the counter. Gold wax seal. Classy. I didn't need to open it. I already knew. She'd been somewhere special. And he was probably there. Somewhere, celebrating. What exactly? An hour later, a message buzzed on my phone. From her sister. No caption. Just a screenshot. Tessa, my wife. Laughing into some guy's chest. His hand on her hip. Her smile. One of those full-faced, eyes-closed deals I hadn't seen in years. And the caption? She said yes. That's when the weight really starts to shift. And so does the plan. Say the word, and I'll tell you what came after. She said yes. The words were still burned into my screen when I dropped the phone. It hit the kitchen tile and skidded under the table, just far enough that I had to get on my knees to fish it out. Fitting, really. There I was, literally crawling around in the wreckage of a life I didn't know was over. You ever realize you're not the main character in your own marriage? That's what that moment was. A reboot with me written out of the script. 10 years together, and she's proposing new storylines with another man while I'm still arguing about what kind of almond milk to buy. And the worst part? She said nothing. I came back inside the next morning, didn't storm in, didn't slam a door. Just walked like a man looking for his wallet, not his dignity. She was making smoothies, strawberries whirling around like nothing had happened. Betrayal never smelled so fresh. You're being weird, she said. Not where were you? Not let's talk. Just that, like I was the inconvenience. You're really going to do this passive-aggressive thing again? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not with that picture still seared into my brain. Her, in a red dress I'd never seen before, laughing into some guy's chest like she belonged there. Like he was home now. And then came the kicker. A message from her sister. Another screenshot. Another angle. Tessa holding up a ring. My wife, still legally my wife. Beaming under string lights next to Rory James Calder. That's right. That just a friend from her department. The one who used to text her at 10:37 p.m. with project updates. And me? I was a footnote. A man folding socks while she folded a future with someone else. Next, let's just say the silence wasn't going to stay quiet much longer. Ready? Let me tell you something strange about heartbreak. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It catalogs. I spent the next day taking inventory of my own absence. I didn't tell her I was leaving. Not yet. I just edited myself out. My toothbrush, gone. The blue flannel she always borrowed when she was cold, even though she had 6 perfectly fine sweaters, packed. The camping mug with the faded "World's Okayest Husband" printed on the side, wrapped in an old hoodie, tucked in a duffel bag like it was an heirloom. She noticed none of it. She was in the bathroom most of the afternoon, singing along to some playlist she made with Rory. Yes, I went back and checked the playlist name. Vibes with RJC. It used to be Sunday Slow Burn. That was ours. Not anymore. You know the moment I really broke? It wasn't the pictures. It wasn't the confetti or the engagement ring. It was when I found my hiking boots shoved behind the vacuum in the hallway closet, covered in dust. Like the man who wore them had been declared obsolete and shelved next to last year's allergies. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the guest bed, my new territory, apparently, watching the ceiling fan spin like it might hypnotize me into forgetting who I was. I kept replaying her laugh. Not the fake one she gave her coworkers. The real one. The one that used to make me feel like I'd won something permanent. She hadn't laughed like that in months. Maybe a year. Maybe more. When dawn bled through the blinds, I got up. I made coffee. 2 cups. One with oat milk and cinnamon. Hers, always. The other, black. No sugar. Just like the mood. She came in, barefoot, hair twisted up in that casual bun she did when she wanted to seem low effort, but still looked like an ad for natural beauty. She saw the mugs, blinked like she forgot we used to be people who drank coffee together, and said, "Oh, thanks." She sipped it, lips pursed. Then, without looking up, "You didn't sleep in our bed again." Our bed. Right. I said nothing. Just sipped my own coffee and stared out the window like it might offer an exit strategy. "Is this how it's going to be now?" she asked. I turned slowly. "What way is that?" She rolled her eyes. Cold. Dramatic. Acting like a victim when nothing even happened. That right there? That was the punchline. Nothing even happened. Nothing. I asked. I mean, she shifted. I didn't cheat. You said yes. Her jaw tightened. You weren't supposed to see that. And yet I did. She put the mug down, a little too forcefully. It's complicated. No, I said quietly. It's actually very simple. You planned an entire new future before even finishing the old one. She didn't reply, just walked out of the kitchen, the way someone might step around a puddle on the floor. Careful, avoidant, inconvenienced. After she left for work, I went to the attic. It wasn't dramatic. No smashing things. No sad montage. Just sorting. Quiet, methodical removal. I boxed up the anniversary scrapbook, the concert tickets she swore she'd frame one day, the mixtape I made her during our first winter together, back when burning CDs still meant something. I found a Christmas card from 2018 that read, "To my favorite teammate, here's to all the years ahead." I put it in the fire pit out back, watched it curl like a dry leaf. That night, she didn't come home until 11:42. I know because I checked. When she walked in, she smelled like champagne and someone else's excitement. "You're up," she said. I nodded. "You were celebrating?" She froze in the doorway. "It was a dinner. For Rory's promotion. Right? The one where you said yes." She flinched, and that was the only honest thing her body had done in days. I stood. "You don't have to lie, Tessa. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to cry. I'm just going to leave." She panicked. "Wait, what? You're overreacting. This was supposed to be temporary. You don't get to say that anymore. You can't just walk out," she said, stepping forward. "You're still mine." "I was never yours," I said. "I was just the placeholder until your yes finally found the right name." She didn't cry. I didn't expect her to. But for once, she didn't perform. No humming. No makeup. No speech. Just silence. I packed the rest of my things in the dark. Left the spare key on the counter. Didn't even take the last cinnamon stick from the jar. At the door, I turned back. "You said yes," I whispered. "But you lost more than you know." She reached for words. None came. I stepped out into the night, duffel over my shoulder, the cold biting but clean. She said yes. I said goodbye. I didn't go far. That's the funny part. You'd think, after packing up the better half of a life, I'd hit the open road with some sad Springsteen song in the background and disappear into poetic heartbreak. But no, I went 15 minutes down the road to a rental cabin I found on a local app, small, cheap, smelled like cedar and second chances. I didn't need distance. I needed strategy. See, people like Tessa don't break things suddenly. They loosen the bolts over time, smile while the screws fall out. She had already rewritten our story in her head. She was the unfulfilled wife. I was the boring man who folded socks and made breakfast with too much silence. And Rory? He was the upgrade. A smoother model. Flashier design. More buttons to press. But upgrades come with bugs. And I knew hers. First rule of revenge: never announce it. Never storm out yelling, "You'll regret this." The truly unforgettable exits are the quiet ones. No slammed doors. No flailing. Just a clean cut so sharp they don't feel it until they've already bled. That's what this was. Precision. I spent my first full day away doing what most men in this position never bother with. I got organized. Started with our joint accounts. We didn't have a prenup, but I had always managed our finances. She never cared for numbers unless they were on a gift receipt or a wine label. I knew where every dollar lived, where it slept, what it dreamed about. So I moved mine. Not illegally. Not dramatically. Just carefully. Clean withdrawals. Scheduled transfers. My savings tucked into new places with new passwords and two-step verification. If she noticed anything, it would look like monthly maintenance. Next, the documentation. I scanned our marriage license, tax returns, insurance policies, anything with a signature. Not because I needed it yet, just because I knew she never kept track of her paperwork. It would come in handy. I made a spreadsheet. Yes, a spreadsheet. Call it boring. Call it obsessive. But when the storm comes, the one with the most columns wins. Row 1, engagement date. Row 2, real estate assets. Row 3, known lies. Under known lies, I made a list. Not guesses. Not suspicions. Documented falsehoods. She said she had a team dinner on March 14th. Her calendar said Denver retreat. But her Instagram showed a rooftop bar. No teammates. Just Rory with his 2 white teeth and that smug tucked shirt confidence. March 20th, she told me she was staying at her sister's to help with a sick kid. Her sister posted photos from a spa in Sedona. I had screenshots. This wasn't jealousy. This was evidence. I built a case not for court, but for clarity. Because at some point, she was going to realize she had underestimated me. And when she did, I wanted her to feel it in her spine. The second night at the cabin, I got a message from her. First one since I left. Can we talk? I stared at it. No punctuation. No question mark. Like even her grammar was tired now. I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, I didn't think you'd actually go. Another hour. Are you safe? That one made me laugh. Safe? I was thriving. I spent the rest of the evening drafting a letter, not to her, but to myself. A list of everything I had accepted without realizing it. The small erasures. The slow fade. The way she stopped saying goodnight and started muttering, "I'm tired," like that was an answer to a question I never asked. I called it the things I let slide list. She stopped calling me by name. She canceled 3 anniversaries in a row. She once told a friend I was the safe option. She took down our wedding photo and said the frame didn't match the new decor. She said I was too gentle. Too gentle. That one stuck with me. As if kindness was a flaw. As if folding socks meant I couldn't fold a plan. The next morning, I bought a burner phone. It wasn't for anything dramatic, just a new line to start fresh. I gave the number to 3 people: my sister, my lawyer, and a buddy from college who once helped me move a broken pool table down 3 flights of stairs because it builds character. Tessa didn't get the number. She didn't get access to my new email, or my new mailing address, or the Google Doc I titled Exit Strategy, which included step-by-step instructions on how to dissolve our shared assets with minimal drama and maximum closure. That afternoon, I sent her a single envelope. No return address. Inside was a USB stick. On it, just a folder titled Perspective. It included the Instagram screenshots, hotel receipts she'd hidden in our joint account, a photo of her engagement party with Rory, taken from a guest public post. I blurred everyone's faces but theirs. No note. No threats. Just proof. And silence. A few hours later, she called me. I let it ring. Then she texted, "This is a mistake. You're blowing everything out of proportion." I almost responded with, "You're right. I should have left sooner." But that would have reopened the door. and I just finished locking it. See, the real revenge wasn't some grand explosion. It wasn't going to be a viral rant or a court battle. It was going to be her, sitting in that kitchen one morning, pouring coffee into a mug I didn't leave behind, humming a song I used to play, and realizing the man who folded his socks also folded her out of the narrative. Clean, quiet, unforgiving. And I wasn't even done yet. It happened on a Thursday. I was sitting on the porch of the cabin, sipping coffee from a chipped mug that said "Camp More, Worry Less," and flipping through the pages of a paperback I wasn't really reading. The wind rustled the trees just enough to sound like nature whispering secrets I already knew. Then I heard it. Gravel crunching, car door shutting, and footsteps, heels, to be precise. Too expensive for this road, too practiced for this setting. She didn't knock right away. I watched through the screen door as she stood there, fidgeting, adjusting her sleeves, scanning the trees like she expected me to pop out of one like a forest ranger with a clipboard. Then, finally, 3 knocks. Light. Hesitant. I opened the door slowly, leaned against the frame. "Tessa," I said, voice even. Her eyes flicked across my face, trying to read me. She smiled, weak and watery. "Hey, you drove 2 towns over. You must really hate texting." She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, motioned her in like a polite stranger offering shelter from a light drizzle. She walked in like the place offended her. Took in the rustic furniture, the smell of pine and coffee, the total lack of Wi-Fi. "This is where you went?" she asked. "Off-grid mountain monk vibe." Funny. I was going for peace. I motioned toward the small couch. "Sit." She did. Not comfortably. Like someone on trial. "I got the USB," she said. "I know." She exhaled. "Okay. So, are we doing the whole Cold War thing forever or—" "No," I interrupted. "Just until I stop smelling his cologne on your words." Her lips parted, but no sound came. She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I tilted my head. "You accepted a ring, Tessa. That's not it just happened. That's a checklist." I was confused. "You were committed," I said calmly. "To someone else." Silence. Then she said it. The sentence I always knew would come, just never thought I'd hear it from her lips. "I miss you." I sat back. Took a long sip from the mug. "You miss me. Or you miss what I did for you." She looked up, wounded. "That's not fair. Neither was you saying yes while you still wore my last name." She stood, started pacing, hands flailing in that way she always did when she couldn't organize her guilt into a coherent narrative. "I made a mistake." "Which part?" I asked. "The betrayal? The erasure? Or the assumption that I'd always stay? I thought you'd fight for me." That stopped me. I stood. Slowly. "Fight." I echoed. "Tessa, I did fight. For years. When you pulled away, I reached. When you turned cold, I stayed warm. When you started treating me like a stranger in our own home, I smiled and asked how your day was. I fought. Quietly. Consistently. And you mistook that for weakness." She looked down. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "You just didn't care if you did." The air thickened. The kind of silence where even the birds seemed to wait for the verdict. Then she asked the question she should have started with. "Is there any part of you that still loves me?" I didn't rush the answer. I walked over to the small drawer by the kitchenette, pulled something out, handed it to her. It was a photo. Us, 3 years ago at a lake. I was mid-laugh. She had her hand on my cheek. "We look like the kind of people we always thought we'd be." "I love that," I said. "But I don't know who you are now. And I'm not interested in resuscitating a corpse of a marriage just so it can die again slower." She stared at the photo like it might bring her back to life. "I don't know how I got here," she murmured. "I do," I said. "One small lie at a time." She didn't cry, but she looked like someone who finally saw the cracks in their reflection and realized the mirror wasn't the problem. She set the photo down gently. Stood up. "I'll go," she said. "Wait." She turned. I walked over to my duffel bag, pulled out an envelope, handed it to her. "What's this?" "Everything you need to sign for a clean exit. No mess. No court drama. No revenge. Just closure." She opened it, flipped through the pages. Real estate transfer agreements. Asset division. Joint account closures. My notes in clean, logical handwriting. "You already prepared all this," she said, stunned. I nodded. "You said yes, Tessa. I just listened." She looked at me like she wanted to say something poetic, something to end the scene with Grace. But Grace left us months ago. She left. Quietly. No slammed doors. No last looks. Just footsteps down a gravel path she chose the day she chose someone else. And me? I sat back on that porch, finished my coffee, and watched the trees go back to whispering. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. But for the first time in years, I breathed easy. They say when a chapter closes, you're supposed to feel lighter. Cleansed, even. But here's what really happens. You hear echoes. Not voices. Not memories. Behaviors. Like how I still checked the passenger seat when I got in the car. Or how I reached for my phone at dinner, expecting a text that wouldn't come. The human mind's a stubborn thing. It adapts to routines like vines to a fence, even if the fence was slowly rotting. 3 days after Tessa left the cabin, I got a text from her sister. You okay? She's spiraling. I didn't answer. That part of the play was over. No callbacks, no encores. But something about that word, spiraling, stuck with me. Tessa wasn't a spiraler. She was a curator. Of appearances, of impressions, of stories that made her the protagonist, no matter how the plot turned. Which meant only one thing. I had done something she didn't expect. I stayed gone. No dramatic return. No last-minute begging. No public meltdown. Just absence. Sharp, quiet, undeniable. That's when the emails started. Then the voicemails. Her tone changed with each one, confused, then angry, then teary, then numb. It was like watching someone scroll through the emotional menu and order every dish just to see what I'd respond to. I didn't bite. Instead, I spent those days finishing something I'd started the moment I saw that ring on her finger. Documentation. See, it wasn't about punishment. It was about precision. I printed everything: texts, receipts, photos. Even the messages she sent Rory. Not because I needed them, but because I knew she would try to rewrite the ending. Tessa was a revisionist. She'd stand in a burning house, holding the match, and say the fire just happened. I wasn't going to give her that out. So I compiled it all into a file. Hard copy. Bound. I labeled it The Truth, for when she forgets. I didn't plan on giving it to her. But knowing it existed? That was power. Not over her, over the doubt. The one that creeps in late at night and whispers, maybe it wasn't that bad. This file was my answer. Yes, it was. And here's the footnotes. I started job hunting too. New place. New name. Even middle name on the paperwork. Fresh email. New voicemail greeting. It felt good, shedding the layers of a life I no longer fit into. Then one morning, a mutual friend, Greg, texted me. Hadn't heard from him in years. One of those guys who's always neutral. Switzerland with a grill and a fantasy football league. Dude, you seeing this? Attached was a screenshot. A social media post. Tessa. Smiling. Alone. Wine glass in hand. Caption. Healing. Growth. Peace. And the comments? Full of sympathy. You deserve better. Some men just don't get it. Proud of you for leaving a toxic relationship. There it was. The rewrite. I should have been mad. I should have flipped a table or drafted a passive-aggressive response. Instead, I did something much worse. I smiled. Because that was the moment I realized she had already lost. Not in the Instagram way. In the actual way. See, when you spend years pretending, you start to believe your own edits. But eventually, the curtain falls, and you're left alone on stage with the audience blinking in silence. That post? That was her dress rehearsal for sympathy. Her trial balloon. But you know what happens when someone posts about peace for times in a week? People start to ask, peace from what? Greg followed up. You want me to comment? Call her out. I replied, no. Let her dig. The truth always echoes louder. And it did. 3 days later, another post. Less likes. More vague. People only see what you show them. Then, nothing. No more photos. No more wine glass wisdom. Just digital tumbleweeds. Meanwhile, I was getting offers. A job lined up. A place to stay. Clean. Modest. Mine. I took the long way on my final drive out of town. Past our old brunch spot. The bookstore she said she loved but never finished a book from. The park where she said forever on a Tuesday and made it until Friday. I didn't stop. Didn't take a last photo. Some places are better as memories, not landmarks. At the last light before the highway, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. I let it go through. Then played it. Tessa. Her voice was raw. Not crying. Just hollow. Hey, I know you won't answer. I just wanted to say, I read the file. The one you left in the safe. I didn't know you kept all that. I didn't know you saw me like that. She paused. You could hear the swallow, the hesitation. I just hope someday I can explain. Not to fix anything. Just to be understood. Anyway, that's it. Click. That was the first honest thing I'd heard from her in months. And I still didn't respond. Because some truths don't need conversation. They just need to exist. The thing about silence is it's not just an absence. It's a presence. A decision. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I was walking on gravel. Real stones. Real ground. My own road. I settled into my new place. Nothing fancy. One bedroom, wide windows, a view of trees that didn't ask questions. The kind of place where coffee tastes better because no one's complaining about how I make it. I didn't decorate. Not at first. I kept it sparse, like a hotel room waiting for someone interesting to check in. Eventually, I hung one thing on the wall. A mirror. Not because I needed to look at myself, but because I wanted to remember I existed. Fully. Without her reflection blurring the edges. And I started to laugh again. Small things. Bad sitcoms. Burnt toast. Overheard conversations in the grocery line. I didn't realize how long it had been since I laughed without waiting to be corrected for it. Meanwhile, she stayed quiet. The post stopped. The healing journey tour bus hit a pothole and never resumed the route. No more cryptic captions. No more curated grief. I figured she was either rewriting a new version or sitting in the quiet she used to run from. Either way, not my concern. Until one day, I got a letter. Handwritten. Not her handwriting, her mother's. It said, simply, "Whatever happened between you and Tessa, I just want you to know you were always family to us. And I'm sorry. For everything." That was the final nail in the myth. Because when the people who raised her start picking sides, you realize you weren't crazy. You were calm. And they noticed the storm long before it hit. It was raining when she came. She didn't knock at first. Just stood there under the awning like an apology with good posture. I saw her through the peephole, holding an umbrella like a prop she wasn't sure how to use. When I opened the door, she looked surprised. "You still drink black coffee?" she asked. "Still fold my socks, too," I replied. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She was thinner. Not in the glamorous way. In the "I haven't slept through the night in weeks" way. "I just needed to say it," she said. "Say what?" "That you didn't deserve it. Any of it." I didn't answer. I thought I needed excitement. Turns out, I just needed therapy, she added with a shaky laugh. I nodded. "So go get it." "I am. Started 2 weeks ago." "Good." Silence again. The kind that used to make her squirm. Finally, she said, "You're different." "I'm not. I'm just not confused anymore." That landed. She blinked fast, like she was holding back something unscripted. Then she said it. "I miss being safe." I closed the door slowly. Because some doors you don't slam. You just lock. A year passed. She sent one last message. No words, just a photo. That lake. The one we laughed at together. No one else in frame. I didn't respond. Because by then, I was already sitting on another dock, in another state, next to someone who laughed with me instead of at me. Her name? Doesn't matter. She wasn't the reward. The peace was. Because revenge isn't noise. It isn't rage. It isn't a grand finale. Revenge is when the person who broke you checks in and finds no vacancy. Revenge is living well and leaving the door behind you not just closed, but replaced.